Yeah, but just to focus on the WHO just for a second, the head of the WHO, the Director General office, can decide on what is a pandemic and what's not a pandemic without consultation with member states. Have I misread that in the proposals?
100% correct. And it's an incredibly dangerous geopolitical tool. If Tedros or another director general who's put into that position to facilitate certain objectives, they decide your country is troublesome. It's been doing things that the cartel doesn't like. All they need to do is then declare a public health emergency of international concern and instruct your country to shut down. Which of our countries can afford to go through lockdowns again, Eddie? Absolutely none of us. Certainly not us as the 99%. So it's an extremely dangerous tool. Tedros, for that matter, has been accused of genocide in his home country, Ethiopia. And I've engaged and interviewed with the Amhara people who are also going through a genocide right now. God be with them. They actually objected very strongly and officially, even to the International Criminal Court, about his appointment to the WHO. The WHO didn't listen, they appointed him anyway. So we're sitting with the head of the WHO being an alleged terrorist. So this tells you all we need to know about this organization. That's not to say there aren't good people working on the inside, but at its roots, it is corrupt.
Well, can I bring you then, Sabnam, to the notes I sent you there the other day, and yeah, and further notes on it. Just to explain it, that it seems to me that Ireland could become kind of the Waterloo for the WHO, because we have the 1987 Crotty ruling by the Supreme Court, which mandates a referendum in Ireland on any treaty changes, external treaty changes by the country. Even if the government decide to pass it, it has to go before the people by way of referendum, which means that the ordinary commoner garden variety, the ordinary Irish voter, is going to become very familiar with a lot of the detail here. And of course, there'll be a lot of arm twisting and money pouring in to try and tell us that the countries that are leaving, sure, they're just, they just see it as a conspiracy. They're all just conspiracy theorists, and everything is fine. Because what's going to happen here is that Ireland is going to become, as it had before, the battleground in Europe to try and pass something that the EU wants, that the Irish people are the only people in Europe that can say no to it. How do you see that playing out?
Well, we're certainly going to be relying on the Irish to take up those cudgels. It's fantastic that your process of referendum actually works. The last time we've had one in South Africa was in relation to ending the apartheid state. We haven't had referendum since. So if this mechanism of referendum is operational in your country, or even if it isn't, I would certainly urge the Irish to mobilize around that. And through that process, really the Irish people will become completely aware of exactly what the problems are with the WHO. By extension, the rest of Europe. Interestingly enough, the EU parliamentarians also submitted a letter regarding the IHR and rejecting it. So there's a question as to whether being part of the EU is actually positive, or is it negative, where certain representatives can make decisions on behalf of all countries in the EU. But coming back to the Irish, I certainly have great hope that there are some ethical and fiery parliamentarians who are going to take up the cudgels and exercise the right to referendum.
Well, on that final point, we have in the office of the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins, who's quite outspoken, especially on external matters. But if he was here, and he's not, but if he will be listening to this because I'll be sending it to him, what would you say to Michael D. Higgins? Because he has the power to refer any potential legislation that may attempt its way through the Irish Parliament to the Supreme Court, and he can call a Council of State as well to go over it. If he was here and he was listening in, and you were addressing him directly, President Michael D. Higgins, what would you say to him?
Well, I would say to him, as a president, he has the role, the duty, and the responsibility to protect the health, the freedom, and the sovereignty of the people that he serves. And certainly, if he was looking for more information around why so many people like me for the last 3 years have been advocating against the power grabs by the WHO, just feel free to reach out to us. He can also refer to the World Council for Health's policy rejecting a monopoly over global public health, as well as the incredible work being done by Children's Health Defense and the organizations and individuals we work with there. And of course, to exercise that right to referendum. If he doesn't do that, he may find, or you may find, President, that politicians are going to become irrelevant, not only through the WHO, but also the United Nations, which is pushing for the authority, standing authority over complex global emergency shocks. And there's a long list of them. So essentially, politicians will become irrelevant if not for the interests of the people and the right to self-determination of the Irish people, then at least for self-preservation and for politicians to still have a job in the democracy that exists in your country.
Well, Shabnam Palesa Mohamed, thank you very much for such clarity, and I wish you well in your continuing campaigning against the WHO and its movements.
Thank you,
Thanks for coming
Eddie.
on Counterpoint.
Power to the
Thank you.
people.
Well, if you've enjoyed Counterpoint, please subscribe by clicking the button below.